Thank you so much, and greetings to everyone in the name of the Lord, and indeed compliments of the season. As we look at this year, as usual, a number of us have made resolutions. Like TK says, if we don't contact him in a week, then he has to charge us. Whatever we have looked at, however we have worked with, it's very important for us to notice one great thing. And I say this because not too long ago, just about 2 days or so ago, one of the Christian leaders that I know in our country passed on. And there's been a lot of talk. And the burial should be on today. But I kept on thinking, why should it be that person dying? Because I think they've done a lot for the Lord and they have actually served the Lord. They have touched lives. They have touched different people's lives and changed lives. And the question comes again, what is it that you are going to carry before the Lord as something that you did for him to transform? Where we are called to the ministry of reconciliation. That's what the Bible says. And as Christians, sometimes we have all these, especially for Pentecostals like myself, we have all the giftings and the ministries and ministry of healing, but we rarely talk about reconciliation. But in that reconciliation, it means you've changed people's lives. And this morning, I want us to focus the fact that God has appointed you just where you are is the right place, the right situation, the right country, because he knows you are his change agent. And because of that, I want you to reflect and see. I've said this, I think, before, and I've always asked in my family, sometimes you look at your families and you say to yourself, but why has everybody done this and it's only me who hasn't done A, B, C, and D? Let me share a little secret. I think all my siblings have lived outside the country. I have just visited different countries for a short while. And I would joke and I would tell God, but God, honestly, am I the only bad one that you don't want to give me something to do outside the country, even for just 4 months? And I would laugh about it. But I would also come back and tell myself, maybe God knows me better. I might disappear and forget who I'm supposed to be. And this morning, I just want us to start on a note as we look at transformational leadership. I want us to just first note that we are strategically placed. And I want us to quickly just turn to Acts chapter 17, a well-known verse. Acts chapter 17. And I want us to just look at Paul's thoughts as the beginning of what we are talking about. I know all of us know the Apostle Paul, and for the Bible scholars, you actually even have more information about Paul. And he had all sorts of travels. I've had an opportunity to visit Greece, and I was totally blown away when we visited the site where it is believed Paul actually, the happenings in chapter 17 actually happened right where he went. And so in Acts 17, And I'll start from verse 22. If you remember, it's talking about Athens. He had gone to Berea, he was ministering, and Paul had this great habit of going back to places where he had ministered before and making sure that the people that he had spoken to, the people that had come to know the Lord, were grounded. And it is Paul, again, who actually tells us and even tells Timothy that it's very important that whatever you're holding, whatever you have learned, you should pass on to faithful men, entrusted. What God has entrusted in you and given to you should be entrusted to faithful men who also pass on to the others. The Second Timothy chapter 2 and verse 2, Paul says, whatever you have learned, that which you learned, which you were taught, pass it on or entrust. And if you're going to entrust, it means you do it in a very clear way, in a very systematic way, but also it means you do actions that are intentional for you to pass on what you have. And so in chapter 22, he's gone around. He's assaulted, on Jason's house. He's also ministering to the Bereans, and the Bereans wanted to know more. Then he goes to the philosophers at Athens. And one of the things that I note is that he actually went to a marketplace, the Agora. And when you go to Greece, and it's like you stand on a podium, but it's just on a mountain, and everybody's seeing what you're doing. And as leaders, one of the things that we need to do is to realize that everybody is watching what we do, what we say, how we live, and how we represent the God we serve. And so in chapter 17, I'll quickly just read verse 22. When he now just desires to see, he had seen what was happening in Athens and learned that people had different gods and they were worshiping different gods. And they were worshiping different structures. And if you go to even the ruins, the blessing that I had of going to Greece, even just this past year in October, is to see the ancient works that were done on the temples. It was marvelous. But still, even the rocks and even the pillars that were there originally are still there and being refurbished. But this is where Paul says, Paul stood up in the midst of the Areopagus and said, men of Athens, I perceive that in all things you are very religious. He knew his setting. He knew where he was. He was willing to pick from where they were and be able to minister. And so he picks and says, I know who you are, for I was passing through and considering the objects of your worship. I even found an altar with the inscription, to the unknown God. Therefore, the one whom you worship without knowing him, I proclaim to you. God, who made the world and everything in it, since he is the Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. There's nothing God needs from us. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord in the hope that they might grope for
Sorry, I think we lost our sister due to internet. Okay. She's
Hear me?
okay, now you are back. We lost you, but
Sorry about that.
yeah, no problem. Welcome back.
So, in chapter 17, and my verse that I wanted to focus on was the verse 26, that he has determined your dwellings, he has determined your pre-appointed times and the dwellings or the boundaries where you're supposed to be, because he wants you to seek him, but also to call upon him, but also to transform lives. And I want to submit to you, great leaders, that God has strategically placed you just where you are. The problems that you have in your country, the issues that you have in your family, the issues that are surrounding you, that's exactly where he wants you to be because you're strategic. If I was placed where you are, it was going to be very difficult. Where Dr. Oladapo is, it's exactly where the Lord wants him to be because he has what it takes to make a change where he is. So as we come to talk about transformational leadership, I want you to set up and see yourself as that person that God has placed in the right place to make a difference. And as we shall see, a transformational leader changes, and that change is not for a short while, it's permanent. When you transform, it means you completely change what the previous mode was or how somebody was before. So let me try and share my presentation. And we shall start from there. I know we have gone through different issues, but even in the world, what I've noticed, even in our studies and all, most of the theories, most of the aspects that are in management are really very biblical, and we can actually see Bible examples of these. And some of the different policies, the different pronouncements, the different issues that we pick about certain aspects are very, very biblical. And when we talk about leadership, I know that all of us have, they are various. We have more than 10. But I'll just pick just for us to know that we can actually look at the key 10 types of leadership styles. A style is a dress that I put on. You can choose to do differently or wear different hats for different things. But also when we look at just generally what the styles are, we are saying we have autocratic, we have democratic leadership, we have delegative leadership, we can call it visionary leadership. There are others which have affiliative. It's really just having people around. You also have pace-setting leadership. You have transactional leadership. You have transformational leadership. And then you also are able to have coaching, and you also can have bureaucratic leadership. These are just leaderships that we have. This morning, I just want to look briefly at what transactional leadership is, because I note that in a lot of things that we've been doing, especially as Christian leaders, there's a lot of transactional leadership. And then I'll just touch on that just a bit, but then we'll delve into what a transformational leader is. So when we talk leadership aspects, if you look at those 10, if you look at the different characters, the leaders that are in the Bible, you could actually find some of these attributes in some of these leaders. Now, when we talk about transactional leadership, when you're transacting. It's almost like you simply want to transact. Transactional leadership is just about results. You just want people to perform. You want people to be able to, in your church, to be able to raise funds. And so you talk to them and you use scripture to hammer them. You need to give so that we build, so that we do. What you are really just doing is you just want results. So when we talk about transactional, it's task and reward. If we give, the pastor will be very happy. Even in our workplaces, when we give, if my classes pass, my vice chancellor is happy. My dean is very happy because it's transaction. There's a transaction. There's a give and a take. They're buying something off me. It's also passive and quite structured because you want things done somewhere. You also use reward and punishment because for you to inspire people, you either tell me I'll charge you if you do not come for work. And sometimes as Christians, we are using that. And we are saying to our members, where are you? Why didn't you come? You are not committed. And we want to charge them. It's got a weak emotional belonging. All you want is results. You do not care whether I'm hurting, whether I'm weak, whether I need development. All you want is I should come for that service or for that activity at church. You want to monitor and control. So, Sister Margaret, where did you go? So, how long were you there? And why did you not come for the meeting? You are missing these meetings. Then you want to maintain stability in culture, just how you do things. You structure and strategic things, but you also want to just follow a certain pattern. May I submit to the great leaders this morning that in as much as this can work and bring results, it doesn't last because I'll get tired of the meetings you ask me to come to. And remember, the relationship just ends at the redefined, just once, just the transaction. Once the transaction is complete, you throw me out. However, when we look at transformational leadership, it's more influential, it's inspirational, and it has charisma. I'm not doing it because I want you to build the house of God. I want you to also see that building the house of God is something that will build you up. And it's something that will also help you see why God has placed you where you are. It's active. It brings new things to working. It's also, if I may use the word, you want to actually innovate. Sometimes we are all set on how a service is. Notice how we carry ourselves as leaders. Notice how we carry ourselves in churches for pastors. We even have a set way of doing things, of what follows what. It's okay, it's structured. But sometimes as a transformational leader, be willing to change. Be willing to actually challenge the status quo. You want to also use personal attributes to influence followers. They'll follow you because they see who you are. You are strong and you have an emotional bond. You just don't want to use me, but you also want to develop and empower me. This was what Paul was talking about in 2 Timothy. Paul had the courage of saying, imitate me as I imitate Christ, because he took time to actually train the young people that he was working with, the people that were around him, even the young Timothy himself. He taught them, what you see me do, follow. But for us, in a lot of times as leaders, we say, do what I say and not what I do. So you want to develop and empower. If you're going to entrust you need your work and the in structure and culture. You want things that will be permanent, but that will bring glory and honor to the Lord. You want a long-term relationship. It's not just because I've gotten something out of you. And I just wanted us to look at these because there's a lot of things that we do just to get results. But may I present that when we talk transformational, we are saying permanent change in a person's life for the better. And so this morning, as we move, let's look at some of the attributes. Like we said, if I just take 8 of those 10, transformational means you are inspiring, you are motivating to achieve a shared vision and goals. If we go to the servant leadership, which is what we really preach, and that's what Christ was for us, is that you prioritize the needs of the others, the well-being of others, over self-interest. Also, if we look at in transformation, you want to be charismatic. You also want to say you rely on personal charm. Sometimes it's because I can speak well. Or you want to just influence others because of what you carry. And sometimes we do that. There's nothing wrong because all that can actually lead to good. But when you're transforming, it means you are sharing a vision and you are sharing goals and you are working together to get there. And when you talk about democratic, you're just encouraging participation. Sometimes we do that in our churches as well, and collaboration. Nothing wrong. It will actually help. But all these, if we use them correctly, we can transform lives. Strategic, you develop a clear communication. What strategies, what targets do we have? How are we going to get to where we want to be? Sometimes we are situational. We are really just going to change the needs and wants. Other times it's just visionary. You create something compelling and you are innovative. And then you talk about coaching. It's also providing feedback. You're also getting guidance. What I see is all these can actually go into transformational leadership. If you use it correctly, the way God wants you to use it. And just like John Maxwell says right in the middle, it says leadership is not about titles. And we have gone to titles. Reverend, Bishop, Margaret, and all sorts of names that you want, Reverend, Bishop, Doctor, Apostle. The title is more important than where we are. It's about the position that I hold. Do as I say because I'm the person here. It's about flow charts in this church, in this organization. I want you to be following it this way. But a transformational leader, it's about influencing your life, influencing another, and for the better, and for a better change. And so when we talk transformational leadership, let's look at the word transform or transformation. When we talk about transformation, you are making a marked change in the form. So you totally want to change the form. You want to change the nature, or you want to change the appearance, or even the activities that people do for good, for a long term, not in a short while. The transactional one, we were just doing it for a short while. But when it's transformational, you want it lasting. You want it to be there so that you are able to get to a place where you exert the influence that will change everything about what you do. You cause a profound effect. You also convert into a given format. So the word there is convert. You are converting from what it was to a better thing. You become improved or more advanced. I love that. Because if you're going to be a transformational leader, it means you're changing the way of life. Your influence on my life, on my work, on what I do is making me a better person. And so when you talk about transformational leadership, you want something improved. You want to make sure that it's more advanced. And so there is a theory. When you talk about transformational leadership, the theory, number one, it's change makers. They change what it was before to something better. They're not just changing for the sake of changing because people fear you. You are changing for the sake of progress and development. A transformational leader also, in that theory, says the leaders, you show high risk-taking abilities. Sometimes the risk-taking ability is taking that risk on developing me, the weak one, on including me in what you are doing. But also transformational leaders are highly innovative. When we talk about, if I go back to number 2, one key example that I would give is Paul again. Do you remember that in Titus chapter 1, if you read Titus chapter 1, verse 1, about verse 2 to 5, Paul tells Titus that I sent you to Crete for you to go and complete the work. And I wonder how many of us are like Paul. Can you leave your station? Are you able to entrust your church, your work, your business, your office to another person? Are you able to do that? It took Paul to tell a young person that I've left him, and can you go also and appoint elders? Then Paul must have had great faith and trust in that person. That's what a transformational leader does, because he knows he has passed on and this person can transform where they are going. So you are an innovative. You're not going to use the same method of how you do things. Be innovative. But also transformational leadership means you inspire greater confidence in their they inspire greater confidence in their followers. We will look at a Bible example and try and look at all these aspects, because we are saying, if you're going to be a transformational leader, are you able to inspire that your people will be confident to go on? It's the late Dr. Haggai Edmund Haggai, John Edmund Haggai, the founder of Haggai Institute, who said, attempt something so great for God that it's doomed to failure except God be in it. Attempt something so big that this thing will fail if God doesn't do anything about it. Because if you're going to be a transformational leader, you take risks, but you also inspire greatness in others. The other important thing about transformational leadership then is that you should be able not only to inspire, but to be able to be an example. You should be the person that takes the lead. If I'm going to say we are transformed, I should see the transformation in your life, and you should be my role model. Not to lord it over people, but to see that that leader of mine transforms lives, and I want to transform lives. Apart from that, transformational leaders mentor. Mentoring means you keep working with me for me to get to a place where I can be even better than you. That's a hard one, because sometimes we want people to be just on our level or below us so that we lord it over them. But a transformational leader is not scared to make Martha, to make John better than them, because they know we are here to transform, to change where we are. The other aspect then is that the leader, the behavior that you have influences the followers and inspires them. They are able, I love this portion, that they are able to perform beyond their perceived capabilities. As a transformational leader, because I'm following you and I'm looking at what you're doing, and because of your influence over me, I'll be willing to go beyond what I know. The transformational leader again inspires, and you can even achieve unexpected, remarkable results. You also work with, not work away from the teams. The transformational leader works with the teams of followers. In spite of who you are, you get down and you identify the necessary change. Is it the courage that we need to take? Is it this particular action we need to take? But also it's creating a vision to guide the change that you want, to influence and inspire those changes. You also want to execute knowing what your goals are, and you get the buy-in of the people that are around you. But also, in as much as you get your vision, a transformational leader elevates followers' ideals, maturity levels. You also have a type of time or eye for the concerns for that achievement. So if you're going to transform, you also are alive to some of the things that these people go through. It's not just about, Margaret, you haven't come for the building project. You have backslidden. It's about, Margaret, you can do this. And when you are there, your capabilities are able to do this. So how can I support you? I can't come for the building project at 6. May I be allowed to come at 9? Oh, sure. Because I know you get back at 19 hours or in the late night, because you are concerned about my issues as well. But you also are concerned that I am mature enough to understand what you want. So it means that leader has to box in all my nonsense, but also panel beat me to a place where I will be a person that will bring change and act or go beyond even the expected way that I should work, because I'm influenced. The transformational leader then inspires, motivates, transforms. When I'm inspired, I will be able to go for work. When I'm motivated, this is the continued working together. That will definitely transform me. There are key elements of a transformational leader. And these 4 key are what I want you to bear in mind as we'll go and look at our biblical example. Number 1, they call it the 4 eyes of transformational leadership. Number 1 is intellectual stimulation. Apart from working on my mind, you are innovative, you are creative, you have goals, but you also, when you talk about challenges, you actually challenge the status quo. You don't want to be exactly where you are. Number 2, transformational leadership then, the second eye, is that you have idealized consideration. This is simply just your mentorship, the empathy we are talking about. You also have a purpose. There's an idea. What is it that we are going to do? But also, that the idealized consideration, you look at the strengths and the skills. When you are transforming a society, a church, a community, your home, look at the strengths and skills of the different players. There may be people that you work with who can not even say a word, but ask them to do something, they'll do it exceptionally well. So know the people that you're working with. Idealize that, individualize it. Find out, what can Pastor TK do well? He's very good at organizing these meetings. So let's give him the job to do that, while we inspire him to do better, but also have the empathy for the people around. Number 3, idealized influence means you are a role model. You have the ideas. You have purpose, but you are also a role model. You walk the walk or walk the talk. Walking the talk is what I said I also do. Walking the walk is walking with them as they walk. The leader says, let us do. And when you do that, you also embody value. You have enthusiasm. You know why you're doing what you're doing. And that enthusiasm is what helps you move in ways that people may never understand. So I want you to look at those 4 I's. Creativity, goals. Then you have purpose as individualized consideration. Then you have idealized influence. Then you are inspirational. When you look at all those, it's very important, because as we will look at our example today, it is something that you need to realize that these actions are biblical. And the other thing is, some of the characteristics of transformational leadership then: inspiration, intellectual simulation, which we've talked about, but also for you to perform that is correctly. Have the direction. Where do you want? What is the pace of events? Set goals, smart goals. You also want to find the right mix of the things that you need to do with people. Do you need to rebuke them? Do you need to support them? You need to have that right and when you have that done, the outcome is that you develop motivational changes. Even your institution or your organization changes. When you talk transformational leadership, I want us to now delve in and look at Nehemiah's example. Nehemiah was a model of transformational leadership. You all know the story of Nehemiah, and may I invite you to take time this week to read the book as we start the year and see what are the aspects that you will pick. Because when we talk about a transformational leader, he models the way. He also encourages the heart. He inspires a shared vision, enables others to act, and challenges the process. Nehemiah, the first thing that we see in the book of Nehemiah was a concern. When we read chapter 1, and in the interest of time, that's why I would ask you to read it, you'll find that Nehemiah was, the first thing that he showed was concern. How concerned are you about the status of your church, your organization, and what is around you? Sometimes we dwell on just closing ourselves with our church. How concerned are you about the city, the community you live in, and the things that are happening. Remember, you are strategically placed in that community to make a change. Whether it's the West community you are in, that's exactly where God wants you to make a change, because our God is a transformational God. So as a transformational leader, where you are, there should be a difference. You influence your world. So from the concern, number 2 is he prayed. Pray about what is it, Lord, that I can do. Cry to the Lord. When he was crying to the Lord, very interestingly, if you go into chapter 1, verse 2, he recognized that the people that he had left, and this is where I want us to also think about how we deal with our people. When you look at how we are dealing with people around us, when we are in a position of authority, a position of leadership, we forget where we come from. We forget where and what is happening down there. But as a leader, if you notice, Nehemiah was serving in the king's palace. It was a comfortable place. So when you get to a place where you have a comfort, don't forget where you come from. A transformational leader remembers his roots and wants the best for his roots. So in chapter 1, verse 2, he talks about the brothers. He asked, how is the situation? Have you taken time to ask, what is the situation of your congregation, of the people that follow you, of the people that are around you, who you lead? When he heard, he wept, he mourned, he fasted, he prayed. It's not just about being angry, being emotional. He knew where to take the matter. He prayed. Prayer cannot be overemphasized if you're going to change any community, any congregation, any organization. Even our secular organizations, prayer is important. Then he visualized what he wanted done. And he was ready because he had a vision. He was prepared. And you could see that when he confesses the sins of the people, he recognizes that they are redeemed. Then later on, he actually then explains his predicament when he had an opportunity with the king. Nehemiah had a vision. And because he had a vision, he was prepared for an opportunity. When the king asked, Nehemiah was able to say, "Oh, king, I cannot be happy because of what's happening." By the time the king asked, "What can I do?" Nehemiah was ready to say, "I need your support." He used his connections. Use your networks. Use your connections. Also, he went and acted. He took action. A transformational leader takes action. You don't just bemoan how sin has increased. In my university, there's a lot of things that are happening. And then I have found something that God has given me, and I've seen where I can actually make transformed changes. But also he took the courage. You don't just go to a place where you haven't been in a long time and things are not working out well. And he goes back, he takes action, he travels, he talks, he asks for letters for his connections, but also he was focused. You know the story of Nehemiah. You know how discouraged he was. How they were discouraging him by the different people that came. You know how even the people that were working, how they felt discouraged, how they needed to fight. He took the courage. But he was also focused. Your focus is not on what people say around you, the negativity coming around you. Your focus is to build. And as a transformational leader, look at the ruins of Nehemiah's time of Jerusalem. And he says, we are going to build this. So even when Sanballat and the others came, one of the things that I love about him taking action, I'll just read one verse. He first took time to view the walls. He went around. If you read chapter 2, chapter 1, he's praying. Chapter 2, he takes action and he views. Now, when he comes to the people and he looks, he says in verse 18 of chapter 2, and I told them of the hand of God which had been upon me, because now the king had given him letters and he had given him time to go off. He even told, if you remember, the king actually asked, how long are you going to be away? Be specific, your goals. And then he says, the king has been good to me, and also the king's words that he had spoken to me. So they said, let us rise up and build. Then they set their hands to work, their hands to this good work. Other versions said, let us rise up. This is a good work. People should be able to rise up with you, even before you say, because you've motivated them, because you have encouraged their hearts, you have inspired them. They want a change. The change that was going to come was the fact that they were going to build a wall, rebuilding. When we look at Nehemiah, you identify your calling. Listen to your calling. Where has God placed you? What is it that you can do? Pray about everything. There's nothing small or big. Pray. But also maintain a brutal honesty. That means face the facts. The hard one is delegate and motivate. When you read the book of Nehemiah, each person had a portion to do. Nehemiah didn't stand there to just supervise, but he also gave them an opportunity to serve, an opportunity to be able to build. So when you delegate, Margaret, yours is this: allow me to work, but also motivate me to go on. Remember when Sanballat came, and they all came, and this is what he says, because in verse 19, Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arab heard of it. They laughed, they scorned, they despised, and said, hey, what is this thing that you are doing? Will you rebel against the king? People have laughed about what you want to do, the big thing that you want to do for the Lord this coming year. And what is it? This is your answer. Just like in Nehemiah in chapter 2 and verse 20, he says, I answered them and said to them, the God of heaven, who are you trusting? Just like, if you remember, even the king, Hezekiah, they said, who are you trusting? He says, the God of heaven. Remember, we said it's the God of heaven who has placed you where you are. So the God of heaven himself, not anybody else, himself will prosper us. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build. Let the enemy know, but you have no heritage or right or memorial in Jerusalem. This is the same thing that Ezra did. When they were trying to, no, can we help? He said, you have no part in this. This is ours. And they started rebuilding the wall. And the Bible says, when they delegated, they built shoulder to shoulder. Recognize that you can collaborate with the others to transform our world. Couple it with prayer. Even that time they prayed, they still looked to God. Demonstrate integrity in what you do. Remember, even when they had lies, because he was a prayerful person, he was able to tell that these people just want to divert me. Remember, we said he was focused? Serve your followers. Things happen. And when you are dealing with people, sometimes there are needs. Remember what we said. You also want to have empathy. You also want to deal with the issues that deal with the people that you work with. He took the time There were those who said, we are sons and daughters, we are many, and the grain is not enough. They took care of what needed to be taken care of. Be a person of integrity. Serve your followers. Find ways in which you can resolve matters within so that people can build. As a transformational leader, you also want to maintain focus. In spite of the conspiracy against him, he still worked. You encourage them. He also told them, you guys, let's find a tool on one side and we work with the other hand, because he was able. But importantly, depend on the Lord and continue to teach. Dependence on the Lord is inevitable. Remember, his answer was, the God we serve will make us prosper. He will help. This work, whatever you do, wherever you are, is not your own doing. It's God's doing. So allow God, trust God, and depend on him. He continued to teach the people about the word of God once they finished. They celebrated together. They took ownership of the problems and mistakes. But importantly, it's giving generously to a work. When you change, when you transform, it may call for you to actually give and take the first step. We always call on people to do things. But importantly, if you had a vision of what you wanted, repeat the vision. Repeat it to people. Where did you want to be? As I kind of wind up, you have the notes. We just want to say, a transformational leader, you change the focus. There you have vision, you empower. The external focus, community, you build. You make administrative issues. You standardize the focus. You are analytical, you are energetic. Internalize the focus. Be a performer, be creative. He knew who could do which gate, but be a person of self-mastery. Be a person of people mastery. Be a person of enterprise mastery. You should be the example. Be that motivation, but also make the change that needs to be made. And so transformational leadership is really developing a vision. You also want to sell that vision. Find a roadmap for that vision. And you have to lead the change. When we transform, we change and alter what was to a better thing. Do not transform to the negative. And as a person that is trusting God this year, be aware of what is around you and see what change you can make, because God has placed you in the right place at the right time. You are the transformational leader. Thank you so much.